Hi, I'm Rebecca Winn for Devil's Digest, here with publisher Rabino, and today we're going to be doing a little spring recap for the defensive side of the ball. So the defensive line had a great season last year. Did you see any of that success impact their spring performances?
Yeah, absolutely. I think guys like Will Sutton actually got to wear the Pat Tillman practice jersey earlier this week, had a great spring, and obviously being awarded that practice jersey says a lot. And I think it's just the whole mentality of really not resting on our laurels, and as good as a junior year that Will Sutton has, being All-American, having accolades from here until infinity, it was also good to see him to go ahead and have a strong spring to boot. And I think Carl Bradford is another defensive lineman. I know he plays the hybrid linebacker, but had a great spring too. And I think those two guys were absolutely a menace, going ahead and harassing the passers, harassing the quarterbacks all throughout the spring. I think the biggest surprise probably on the defensive line is Gavin Conaway starting at defensive end. Ironically, this time last year he also had a pretty good spring practice, then just got lost in the depth chart when fall camp and the season started. And here we are, spring 2013, and so far the script is playing out the same, playing very well in the spring, taking a lot of first team reps, and having maybe a good chance to go ahead and make a statement come fall camp, although I think is going to have a real task on his hands with JC transfers, Marcus Hardison and Demetrius Cherry, so we'll see. But yeah, I think defensive line as a whole did well against the pass, but I think against the run, probably not that great, because when we talked earlier about offense, about Marion Grass and DJ Foster and DeAndre Lewis even having good days, that didn't bode so well for the defensive line in that aspect. That is still, I think, work in progress and maybe the #1 priority on defense.
So how do you feel the linebackers have really dealt the loss of Brandon McGee, and do you feel like someone's really stepped up into his position?
Well, I think Chris Young really stepped up, and I think he's somebody that we saw do a great job at the spur, the hybrid safety position last year. And he went ahead and moved into the will position just because Carlos Mendoza was still not 100% because of the off-season shoulder surgery. So they went ahead and gave Chris Young a chance to go ahead and see what he can do with the will, and he actually did really well. I'm not so sure he's actually going to be in will when fall camp starts, or even when the season starts in September, but at least it's good to know that you have that versatility with him being able to go ahead and fill those huge shoes that Brandon McGee left behind. Stephon Martin, who we talked earlier about, I think did a great job at the Sam linebacker, and somebody that I'm definitely looking forward to see how he does in the fall, because again, I think just when we talked about the defensive line, Gavin Conaway having a lot of pressure, a lot of competition from JC transfers, I think Stephon Martin's going to have to go ahead and deal with the same circumstances in August. So I think linebackers actually did a pretty good job, but just what we talked about the defensive line having a hard time stopping the run. I think linebackers also, that's one area they want to improve on, but I think that for folks that really thought that the linebacker core was really going to take a big step back because of the loss of Brandon McGee, I don't think we really saw that in the spring, and again, the play of guys like Chris Young, Stephon Martin really helped, I guess, soften that blow.
And as far as secondary, we have some standout stars with Darby and Iribor, but we were really worried about replacing Devron Carr and Keelan Johnson. Do you feel like that's still a concern?
Well, I look at cornerback, and I think it's almost that cornerback by committee, because we saw guys like Rashad Badoud and Lloyd Carrington and Robin Nelson earlier in the spring really each have their moments in the spring. So I think you have a pretty good rotation over there for somebody that can go ahead and step into the role that Devron Carr left behind. So I think that right now that situation is really good. Again, you're going to have some newcomers in the spring. In the summer. They're going to go ahead and make their mark over there. So we're just going to see what happens. But I think cornerback actually has been one of the more pleasant surprises. Like you said, losing Devron Carr, losing Keelan Johnson, that was going to be a concern. When you look at the safety opposite Alton Darby, Lloyd Carrington actually took also some reps over there. It actually didn't look too bad at all. Ezekiel Bishop did okay. Leo Mukiola, someone who took most of the first team reps, had a death in the family in the middle of the spring, so actually missed a lot of practices, but showed that he definitely could go ahead and assume that role. I think one guy you want to look at when it comes to newcomers is Damaris Randall, locally over here from Mesa Community College. I think that's the guy they're slating for that field safety opposite Alton Darby, so we'll see what happens over there. But I think some guys actually did step up both at safety and corner, and I think the situation maybe is not as bad as folks thought it would be, because obviously you lost Keelan Johnson, Devron Carr. Those are two of the best defensive players the ASU had last year, and I think our situation's looking pretty well.
There's a lot of hype on the defense for next year. Do you feel like they're actually going to be able to live up to that?
I think they are because, again, not to harp on the whole Will Sutton wearing the Pat Tillman practice jersey, but when you have one of the leaders of your defense still put in that much effort in the spring, Charlie wants to do even better than he did last year, and last year obviously was an outstanding campaign, I think that sends a message for the whole defense. And also look at guys like Carl Bradford, Chris Young, again, players that did play well in 2012, and you're not seeing them just sitting over here just basking in the glory, but actually wanting to go and take it to the next level. Obviously, a lot of it comes from the coaches. I mean, Todd Graham knows how great this defense can be, and he's going to go in and push them to be, as best as they can be. So I think a lot of high expectations for the defense. Again, we talked about a lot of talented newcomers: Marcus Hardison, Demetrius Cherry, Demarius Randall, linebackers, Rico Florence, and Antonio Longino. There's going to be a lot of talent coming in here in the summer, and you already have a great core, I feel, right now. So yes, I feel this defense can do better than it did last year. And again, going back to my earlier point, really stopping the run, I think that's the only deficiency this defense has right now. I think it's doing great in almost every other aspect. If they can go ahead and really hone on that skill, then yes, I think this defense can be much better than it was last year. And if ASU does have those Rose Bowl aspirations, has aspirations to go and capture the Pac-12 South, there's no doubt in my mind the defense is going to have to play better. As good as it was last year, everything has to kick up one more notch, and that goes for the defense too.
Who, for the spring game, who are your big standouts and who are your big disappointments?
Well, I think on one side is actually Salam Ofiso, a backup linebacker, and somebody that just didn't have a chance really to play as a true freshman, although the coaches in last year's fall camp were thinking about possibly playing him. And I think he showed a lot in the spring. I don't think he's contending for a starting job, but definitely established himself in the rotation. So I think that's one player you want to definitely go to keep your eye on because he had a good spring game, had a good spring overall. As far as disappointment, I would say Anthony Jones. I think he was given an opportunity really to go ahead and lock down that spur position just because they moved Chris Young to the will role. And I don't think Anthony Jones really took full advantage of it. And it's really one of those players, which ironically, you talk about Keelan Johnson, Devon Carr, local guys that for the first 3 years haven't done much but have all the potential in the world. You can definitely see it in the way they play, and maybe the light switch finally comes on their senior year. I'm wondering if Anthony Jones is going to be the same exact script as those two guys, and if he can, that makes that defense that much better. But in all honesty, I think that he was some of the disappointment in the spring. I really expected him to take the next step. He was teetering between first and second team, and that's something I really didn't expect Anthony Jones at this point in his career to be dealing with. So a disappointment, but I think maybe a little encouraged that, again, looking at Keelan Johnson, Devon Carr, maybe he can go ahead and have the same Hollywood ending that those two guys had.
Finally, who do you see coming in, that will maybe shake up the depth chart a little bit?
Well, guys I mentioned earlier, Demarius Randall in the secondary, Antonio Longino and Rico Florence, a linebacker, Marcus Hardison and Demetrius Cherry at the defensive line. I think those are all folks that you really want to go and keep your eye on about 3-4 months from now as really making a big push for starting jobs and really at worst being in the 2 deep. And I think overall this class, which is ranked number 30th, not great, not horrible. And I think one of the reasons I was ranked kind of low is because it had 10 JC players in the recruiting class. But people don't realize that each and every JC player, especially on defense, has been addressing a very, very dire need at linebacker, at defensive line, in the secondary. And I think that you'll see a lot of those players, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, really contribute, really go ahead and make an impact. And again, if we're talking about this defense taking it to the next level, I have no doubt in my mind that some of those newcomers are going to have to go and make their impact pretty early, pretty often.
Thanks. And I'm Rebecca Winn for Devil's Digest.